Look at the crystal clear water I just showed you. And yes, I'm well aware that I'm not actually in front of a hot tub today in this video, but look at that water. Is there chlorine in there? Is there pH up or down in there? Are they balancing the alkalinity? And of course, the answer is no. This is a completely natural spring near my house in Wimberley, which is right outside of Austin. This place is called Jacob's Well, and it's a very special place. And there's not a single chemical in sight being added to this water. But with your hot tub, you have to add chlorine, pH up or down, alkalinity up or down, and shock it once a week just to get the water in your hot tub to be the bare minimum of safety in order for you to swim in it. So why does nature get a free pass when we have to do all this chemistry with our hot tubs? Well, that's what we're talking about today in this video. Hi, I'm Jeff Campbell from Hot Tub Owner HQ, and I'm glad you're here with me. So today we're not only going to explain why you don't need to add chemicals to a swimming hole like this and why you do need to add them to your hot tub, but we're also going to dive into the enzyme-based all-natural chemicals that supposedly allow you to treat your hot tub without any harsh chemicals. So first, let's talk about why no chemicals are needed in here. First of all, there's volume. This goes down about 200 feet right at the well. There could easily be hundreds of thousands of gallons in there as opposed to your hot tub, which is going to be between 400 and 600, maybe as high as 800 max. So when somebody swims in here, the skin cells that flake off, the body oils and lotions that come off of their skin, the shampoo and conditioner residue that's in your hair, all of that gets diluted massively by those hundreds of thousands of gallons. It's essentially like dropping a grain of sand into a swimming pool. But also, this is a cold spring. And yes, I know there are some hot springs out there. This one is a cold spring, probably somewhere around 68 degrees year round. A hot tub, of course, by its very nature, is almost always going to be fairly warm, if not outright hot, up to 104 degrees. And people are going to be soaking in this thing that, again, is up to about 600 gallons of water in close proximity with each other and in hot water. All the contaminants are essentially going to be concentrated in there, just like they are when you take a bath. Would you ever think of leaving your bathtub full and then just getting in it every day without doing anything else to it? Of course you wouldn't. And because it's a relatively small body of water, you can't really dilute all the stuff that comes off into the water. The next thing, of course, is movement. And yes, I know hot tubs have jets and maybe a blower, and that does kind of circulate the water around, and that definitely helps. If you've ever seen a stream or a pond that has no movement, it usually looks pretty nasty and stagnant. But a swimming hole like this one, which is spring-fed, naturally has movement constantly. And that entire volume of water might get refreshed every few hours or every few days, depending upon how big a spring it is we're talking about. And again, this one goes down about 200 feet and then juts off through a tunnel into a cave. But even if we're just talking about a swimming hole that's in a creek, the water is flowing along and those contaminants are getting washed and diluted downstream. And I mentioned that hot tubs have jets and blowers, of course, but it's still a closed system. In other words, that water is just getting recirculated among itself. It's not getting diluted and it's not flowing downstream. And yes, I also know that you probably top off your hot tub occasionally because it loses water to evaporation, but you're not topping it off probably more than once or twice a month at most. And even then, you're just adding an inch or so of water. It's not really a lot in the grand scheme of things. Everything that goes into that water pretty much stays in there. And yes, I know a few things get trapped in the filters and you should be rinsing those out about every 3 weeks or so, but it's still a completely closed system. And it stays that way until you drain it. And you should be draining your hot tub about every 3 months or so. But also, I mentioned that this was spring fed, so it's somewhere between 65 and maybe 70 degrees. Cold water hampers the growth of bacteria, whereas hot water or warm water causes bacteria to grow. Think of it as nature's refrigeration. You put stuff in your refrigerator in order to preserve it longer. This works the same way. And if you set your hot tub to 104, that is the perfect temperature for bacteria to grow. And at 104, bacteria can actually double every 20 minutes. And if you didn't add any sanitizer or shock and you were using your hot tub on a regular basis, within 48 hours, it would be literally swimming in bacteria. The other key difference between swimming holes and hot tubs is think of the whole ecosystem that is making up this swimming hole. It's not just water and rock. There's plants in there, there's algae in there, there's fish in there. And the plants especially absorb nutrients and oxygenate the water. Rocks and sand then act as natural filters. And beneficial bacteria that sits on the surface of the water tends to break down organic contaminants. And then, of course, UV light from the sun has natural sanitizing properties as well. And with your hot tub, of course, typically you keep that covered when you're not using it. And your hot tub probably has an acrylic shell as well, which has no porous surfaces, no edges, nothing like a natural surface. The closest thing you could get to a swimming hole like this one would be a hot tub that's part of a pool. It's built into the ground. You don't keep it covered. Maybe it's made from stone or rock or at least concrete that has some porous surfaces, some rough edges, and maybe you've got a waterfall or something that simulates natural water features. But without the benefit of nature, you've got to add chemicals to your hot tub. So what about so-called natural enzyme-based sanitizers that get marketed for the hot tub? Maybe you've even seen ads that say chemical-free hot tub. And a lot of people use mineral cartridges that get inserted into some kind of a floater for their hot tub. But the truth is, these things can help. These things can allow you to use fewer chemicals, but they don't completely replace chemical sanitizers, shock, and pH and alkalinity adjusters. What they do is break down organic compounds like body lotions, residue from shampoo and conditioner, makeup, and other body care products. They break that stuff down, which makes it easier for the sanitizer to do its job, requiring a smaller amount of sanitizer. But it does require sanitizer. But they do not kill bacteria, and that's the important thing to know. So if you're looking for a way to use a smaller amount of chlorine or bromine sanitizer, enzyme products are worth looking at, but don't expect them to replace all of those things. And even if you see a product labeled chemical-free hot tub or something along those lines, read the fine print. You will find, I can promise you, that somewhere in there it says that it reduces the amount of chemicals needed. It doesn't eliminate the need for chemicals. And if you do want to go that route, if you want to try it, I am going to link to my favorite enzyme-based sanitizer for hot tubs down in the description on Amazon. So check that out if you want to learn more. So the bottom line is hot tubs and natural swimming holes are completely different ecosystems. They're completely different entities, and they have completely different needs. And if you do want to go a more natural route, consider adding an enzyme-based product in addition to the chemicals you already use, which will allow you to use smaller amounts of those things. Chemicals aren't the enemy here. They help keep you safe, and they make it safe for everybody who soaks in your hot tub. If you've tried some of these all-natural sanitizers, let me know how your experience went down in the comments. But now, if you'll excuse me, I think I might go for a dip in here.